There is enormous freedom in simply allowing yourself to acknowledge the truth that something is not working anymore and it deserves your attention.
You're not here for the same old, same old. You're not here for just tips. You're here because something in you knows it's time to change. Not just how you lead, but how you live. I'm Janet Ioli, and this is The Inner Edge, a podcast about leadership, self-mastery, resilience, and reinvention for a new world era. Real life, whole self, let's go there. Welcome to The Inner Edge.
Welcome back to The Inner Edge. There's a moment in life, sometimes it's quiet, and sometimes it's really loud, when something you once carried easily begins to suddenly feel heavy. It might show up like a sense of dread when you think about work. Like going to work is like, oh, I can't believe I've got to go to work. Or a heaviness in your chest on Sunday evening. I don't know, I've had that definitely. Or a quiet awareness that you no longer feel like yourself, that something's off. Most people push these feelings aside because if you really go into them and you name them, it feels disruptive and it feels a little scary because, whoa, what do I do with that? And what if these sensations aren't inconveniences? What if they're really invitations and something you really need to be paying attention to? So today's episode, we're going to go into this. We're talking about letting go, not the glamorous, inspirational kind, with these packaged quotes that say, let go, the future's coming, but the real grounded, often complicated process and hurtful process of recognizing the reality when a job, a relationship, a role you have, or an identity you're attached to no longer fits who you are now becoming. This is the deeper soul work of adulthood, I think. And it often begins long before you ever make an actual change. It starts with learning to be honest with yourself. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about the moment you start to know something's off. That early sense of misalignment usually starts really subtly. You may be noticing you're more irritable when you get back from work, or you're more tired, or you're less motivated, like, ugh, I don't feel like doing that. Or you might find yourself going through the motions, just being there. But you're performing a version of yourself that doesn't feel like it's in alignment anymore. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I know I relate to this. This has happened to me in a job before where I'm just like, okay, I'm just doing it. But I've heard so many people tell me about this feeling. It's the most common sign that I've heard, and it's pretty simple, and I've experienced it, is you feel disconnected from your own energy. When your own inner self evolves, but your outer life stays the same, so something's changing inside you, the friction that you're feeling becomes hard to ignore, and it can come with lots of different signs. So after working with thousands of leaders, I've heard that same quiet confession over and over and over again. I don't know what's wrong. I just know I feel awful going to work. I'm not excited about it anymore, and I don't like it. And the symptoms tend to follow these familiar patterns. And I hear this over and over again. I've had them myself. There's the Sunday night anxiety, the tightening in your stomach as the weekend winds down. You may find that your nervous system isn't settled even during your downtime. You're constantly bracing for the next meeting, what's going to happen next, or the next demand. And you're feeling drained and bracing. You also notice that you're performing, you're trying to be someone instead of just contributing with excitement and being yourself. And you're showing up with this polished version of yourself when you're really depleted inside. So there's a misalignment. You're not excited, but you're acting excited because you have to. So there's that piece. Also, and this is a big one. I can't tell you how often I see this and how this has happened to myself. And I'll tell you about that. Your health begins to shift. You may not sleep very well. You're thinking about all the scenarios all night. You get headaches. That was my sign. I would get terrible headaches. They were tension headaches because I would be tensing up all the time. Your blood pressure can change. You can start emotionally eating, or you can also, have other things like my symptom was the headache, and it was also this, not being able to take a breath. It was like I couldn't breathe. It was basically that I was out of breath. Then there's this quiet fantasy of leaving, what you would do if you left. If I won the lottery tomorrow, this is what I would do. So the term golden handcuffs often describes the invisible forces that keep people in their jobs long after they've outgrown them. And I think this is a reality for many people. You've got a job, you're making good money, and so you've got handcuffs. Why would you leave this? Why would you leave this job? It's a salary, benefits, it could be prestige, it could be a title, stock options. It's stable. And the fear of losing that stability create what is called the golden handcuffs, because they're powerful, because they mix your responsibility with your identity, making it hard to imagine change without feeling reckless of letting all of this go or feeling ungrateful for having all of this. A paycheck, though, is not the same as inner peace, and a title is not the same as fulfillment. So part of the soul-searching process is asking yourself, am I staying because I genuinely want to grow, or because I'm afraid of what leaving might require me to do? And that's a conundrum. That's a hard one. And that's why I'm talking about this today, because these are the real feelings that we face when we're in this funk of trying to decide, really, should I stay or should I go? And this is right now I'm giving the example of work, but this isn't just about any facet of our lives. And, there's also the reality of sometimes it's not that the workplace is toxic. It's that it's no longer aligned with your values or who you're becoming. But other times it is toxic. It's truly harmful. You have a boss that abuses you. You have people around you who are not aligned with what you're doing. And I think understanding the difference between that is very important. Toxic cultures are marked by psychological games, chronic undermining of yourself, a lack of accountability, and environments where honesty and your values are punished. And then that's one thing, right? So that's abuse. On some level, it's some sort of abuse, both in a relationship, but also at work. Misalignment is different, though. It's a quieter discomfort rooted in the realization that your values, the pace, or the expectations of the organization no longer fit the person you're becoming. And I think part of your soul-searching journey when you're trying to figure out, should I stay or should I go, is clarifying the difference. Is it toxic? Is it like soul-destroying? Or is it, I'm no longer fitting with this? And letting go is, like I said, isn't only about work. It's relationships. It could be romantic. It could be family members. I mean, I know that's the no contact thing is a big deal, but there's a truth to this. There are abusive family members. There are toxic family members. Or it could be a friendship that has reached its natural conclusion. And some signs that these things are happening is you feel consistently drained after interacting with someone. You silence yourself to keep the peace. Or you notice that to ensure your growth, you have to be distant from the person or lie to the person. I know this happens a lot in family relationships, and we don't talk about abusive family relationships, and that's a whole other episode, right? But, sometimes the love remains, but the alignment doesn't. And this can be painful what I'm asking you to do today is just think about these things and be honest with yourself. So before going any further, I want to acknowledge something really essential. Most people I know and I talk to cannot simply quit a job or just walk out of a relationship. You have bills to pay. Some of us, you have children to raise. You have responsibilities that matter and a life that is built around stability that you've created. And walking away isn't always an immediate, or it may not even be possible in the short term. So I want to be clear about this episode. What I'm talking about is leaving and letting go doesn't always mean, okay, has to happen tomorrow. Often the letting go begins internally. It's something that you're thinking about long before the external world or the external change happens. There is enormous freedom in simply allowing yourself to acknowledge the truth that something is not working anymore and it deserves your attention, and that you're going to create a plan to move forward. Here's what this practical soul work looks like when you still have responsibilities. So I'm just going to walk you through some of the things that I think would be important to think about. First of all, start by naming the truth quietly to yourself. By saying the truth, I'm not thriving here at work. I've outgrown this role, because now you're coming to terms with it rather than just going through the motions and not even thinking about it and being in denial. I really think that's what we're talking about. Then two, really getting deep and clarifying what isn't aligned. Is it everything? Do you just hate the place? Is it the work? Is it the culture? Is it the pace? Is it what people are expecting of you? Is it your boss? So clarifying what it is that's misaligned. Then next is begin exploring possibilities privately and gradually. So you have come to terms with this isn't working. This isn't what's working. And now it's, okay, what are my other options? And this doesn't have to happen tomorrow. It's update your resume, reconnect with people, start networking, explore interests. You don't have to commit to anything. But now you're actually starting to explore, okay, what else is out there? And then I always tell people, create a reasonable runway. 3 months, is that reasonable? 6 months, a year? So that whatever you're going to let go of feels grounded rather than impulsive. I know, when I left my job, I waited. I waited a while. I had figured out a misalignment, and there was no toxicity. It was just a misalignment for me. And I gave myself a year. I gave myself a year to explore this, figure out the transition, figure out what I wanted to do next, and also to create what was next. And so there's nothing wrong with giving yourself time. But once you've come to that conclusion in your mind, it is freeing, and something happens inside of you that is a letting go internally versus externally. The other thing I always tell people, I'm very practical, and I always tell people, strengthen your financial foundation. Start saving money, building a financial cushion, and create a meaningful sense of freedom. So don't just, I'm not someone who's going to say, okay, just leave everything and go off and, start a llama farm or do something like that. No, do it in a way that is also honoring your need for stability. And then also, while you stay, make sure you're setting boundaries. You can protect your well-being even before you leave. So if you have a toxic boss, set boundaries. Or, make sure you're shielding yourself more from that, because your well-being is the most important thing. And then finally, involve people that matter to help you, your partner, your spouse, your trusted friends, or even a therapist or a coach, so you don't navigate this transition alone, so that you are walking step by step. And this approach isn't reckless, and it's not avoidant. In my mind, this type of letting go is responsible, empowered, and I really believe it's grounded in reality, because the reality is most of us can't just let everything go when we've built something over years. So if you're ready to do this work, here are some questions that I think can guide you. And so just think about these things as we end this episode. Where in my life am I misaligned, but I'm forcing myself to stay? What part of me is asking for growth? What physical and or emotional signals have I been ignoring? What are those physical things that have been happening that I'm just ignoring? What am I afraid will happen if I leave? What am I afraid will happen if I stay? If nothing changed in the next year, how would I feel? What would I choose if fear wasn't making the decision? These questions don't ask for immediate answers. They simply open the space for you to be honest with yourself. So what I would advise you is actually go back and play this podcast again, play this episode again, listen to those questions, write them down. Actually, we'll write them in the show notes so that you have them there to reflect upon, because it's a process. It's not just, okay, here's the light switch answer. Letting go is not abandoning something. It's becoming more aligned. It's allowing your life to evolve with you as you do. So when your identity changes, your life must shift with it, or the misalignment eventually becomes too painful to ignore and it's gone way too far. Letting go, and this is what I've observed, is not a single moment. It's a progression of clarity, readiness, and courage. So if you're carrying something that no longer fits, whether it's a job, a relationship, a role, a responsibility, I want you to hear this as we close. You're not failing. You're evolving. The discomfort you feel is not a sign to just bottle it down. It's a sign to listen to the truth more closely. And you don't have to take dramatic action right now or tomorrow. You don't have to throw it all up and disrupt your entire life. But you can begin your internal soul search right now. You can begin the quiet internal work of acknowledging the truth of what's no longer aligned, and then starting to imagine what's possible and starting to take action towards that possibility. Letting go is not necessarily an ending. It's the beginning of a life that reflects who you are becoming. And that is the essence of the inner edge.